Good evening, and welcome back to the next segment of Tales That Terrified in our Series 2 finale. We have gone down the deep end, and currently we have seen deaths and lunacy, and administrators and nurses. We have just started to get good in this story. Now, I must start off by apologizing. The story as it stands, with the titles and the actual videos, they are follow the chapter line. Don't follow the numbers of like out of, one out of, because it is going to be far longer than 5 segments. There's going to be at least 8, I think, because it's a relatively long, it's a full novel. So in order to get the full length of the book itself, of the story, I actually have to segment it up, because these are like hour long, like even 2 chapters worth is about 45 minutes, and so it runs a little long. But if you're here for that, you're here for that, and again, I thank you. As of current reading, we are at 249 subscribers, so if we could just get that one more sub, that'd be great. If not, no big deal. Either way, I thank you for enduring this long form reading, and hope you'll return for more to come, as there will be a series 3, and I already have the next Hitchcock Presents book picked out for it, so hopefully that will be enjoyable. And then, not to mention, don't forget that we have the Tales of Tomorrow series running. We have Bob Clampett's Beanie and Cecil. That is a current cartoon that we have running as well. And we are about to begin a new series, old new series, called One Step Beyond. Hopefully, that will be something that you will enjoy. I felt it to be a little strong. Like, it's definitely good. That being said, we are currently still here at our favorite felines, where the kitty cats are big and small, currently waiting for you to come collect them for their forever home. Now, let's get into chapter 9. Quietly and quickly, Miss Scott walked back to Lucille, thrust her out into the hall, and locked the door. "Come along, Miss Marle. Let's find another room, shall we?" A door opened in Lucille's mind, and out popped Cora, giggling. Really, isn't she absurd? Cora's not feeling well. There was a lilt in Miss Scott's voice, but the pressure of her fingers was businesslike. She had these attacks before. They always pass off. "Absurd! Absurd!" screamed little Cora, hilariously. "Really? Oh, really, really? Oh, Miss Parsons, would you mind calling Dr. Laverne? Miss Green is ill." "In fact," said Miss Scott's wriggling eyebrow, "Miss Green is deader than a doornail, but let's keep it for the children." "Oh," said Miss Parsons, paling. "Of course, right away." She fumbled for the telephone. "Now, let me see, Miss Morrow," Miss Scott said. "It's just about time for OT, isn't it? Are we all ready to go down?" The little Cora doubled up with mirth, her hands at her throat, choking with laughter. Choking. "Cora! Cora, you're poisoned! Cora!" Cora went right on choking. She was poisoned. In the grapes. They killed her, Lucille said. The words were clear-cut in her brain, but they had lost their outlines in traveling to her tongue. It came out as a muffled jumble of syllables. Miss Scott bent her head attentively, and looked as if she hadn't quite understood everything. Or as if she had quite understood everything. "You didn't hear me," Lucille said. "Pardon?" "You didn't hear me. He was killed. The grapes were for me. Now, nobody's going to take your nice grapes away. Don't worry your pretty head about the grapes. Lucille drew in her breath. If she spoke very, very slowly and tried to control her tongue, they would understand her. Cora, Cora was. Miss Scott smiled blankly. Why, of course, Cora will be all right. Lucille turned her anguished eyes to Miss Parsons, pleading. Miss Parsons tried to smile at her, like Miss Scott. Her lips drew back from her teeth, but her eyes were stirred with panic. You're crazy. Why, you're crazy as a bedbug. I'm afraid of you. Dr. Laverne came in the door. He walked softly on his rubber-soled shoes, but he had a big, booming voice. Lucille saw him lock the door behind him. He was carrying his instrument bag in one hand, and he didn't palm the key as the nurses did, but put it in his coat pocket. It was so large that one end of it stuck out at the top of the pocket. Lucille couldn't take her eyes off it. That key would unlock everything. Escape from the hounds, set up a new trail. I have you hold up here, but if you can get the key... Carefully she looked away. She must be very canny, not let them suspect anything. She knew that Cora had been poisoned, but no one would ever believe her. They thought she was insane because she couldn't say the right words. They didn't realize how clever she was. One more look at the key to make sure it was there. Then she would pretend to be sick or to faint. That was better. And when the doctor bent over, she would take the key through the doors and down the slopes past the iron gate. Clever, clever, she thought, and fell back against Miss Scott's arm and heard the doctor padding softly toward her. Watch your key, Doctor, Miss Scott said pleasantly. She didn't actually faint then, but she felt too tired to get up. She sagged against Miss Scott's knees. They were talking about her, but she was too tired to listen. They were urging her to do something, to move her legs, go through a door, behave yourself, lie down, room of your own. We feel that, we know that, we want you to. We are convinced, we, angels of mercy, stepping delicately around the blood, so tenderly bathing the dead, unfeeling flesh. Time for lunch, time for rest, time to take a walk, time for Dr. Nathan, time for Dr. Goodrich, time for dinner. Music, therapy, color movies, church, a dance, bridge. So much time and never any of it your own. So many people and such shadows they all were. Only sometimes did a scene or a person seem real to her. The Phil Singer twins, pressed close together, dancing dreamily to Viennese waltz. Miss Hammond carefully dealing out a bridge hand, and as carefully strewing the cards on the floor, Dr. Goodrich talking. The report on the autopsy is perfectly clear, Miss Marlowe. Miss Green died of heart failure. No. Do you understand me, Miss Marlowe? Miss Green has had a heart condition for some time. Her death was not a surprise to us. The autopsy was performed by a police surgeon, and there was not the faintest evidence of poison. The grapes were all tested, Miss Marlowe. Liar. Miss Green, Cora's sister, is perfectly satisfied with the report. Cora was apparently eating some of the grapes, and a bit of skin got caught in her throat. She became panicky. He must have come into the room just then, and perhaps a sudden entrance and the blockage in her throat. Filthy son of a bitch lying cur, Lucille said distinctly. Filthy, stinking whoremaster. He waited patiently until she had finished, a little surprised, as always, by the secret vocabulary of women. There was no trace of any poison, he repeated. I arranged for Cora's sister to come and see you. She's in the waiting room. Miss Janet Green had been reluctant to come to Pinwood. She had been there so often, always to see Cora, always a little bit of hope in her heart that this time Cora would be better, but actually want to come home. But 3 days ago Cora had died, and her death had had the same enigmatic quality as her life. Everything was perfectly clear on the surface, but there was a strange undercurrent. Janet Green had attended the inquest, a little puzzled, a little bovine. Quite incredible that Cora should panic over a bit of grape skin. Her heart was bad, of course, and there was no evidence of anything else, but still. After the inquest, Dr. Goodrich had come over and spoken to her and told her about a woman called Miss Marlowe who thought Cora had been poisoned. What nonsense, Janet said, dabbing at her eyes with a damp handkerchief. Poor Cora, everyone loved her. It is, of course, pure imagination on Miss Marlowe's part, but that doesn't make it any easier for her. I want you to come to Pinwood and talk to her. There's nothing I could do. It's possible that you could convince her that you're perfectly satisfied with the inquest. Cora told her a great deal about you, and I think she'll look upon you as being on her side. That is, you are Cora's sister and would be most interested in the fact of Cora's death. As indeed I am, Janet said dryly. I'm not quite satisfied. Are you? Perhaps not. The only person who knows the facts is Miss Marple. I see. So I'm to see her for two reasons, to talk and to listen. I have no right to ask you to do this, of course. That's all right, Janet said briskly. I'll do what I can. She was a good-hearted woman. She liked to help people, and since Cora was dead and in no need of anything, she would help Miss Marple. She went at it firmly, telling Lucille in a calm, kind voice that she was Cora's sister, that Cora had died of heart failure. She herself had attended the inquest. She was used to the hospital and not at all nervous, but there was something in Lucille's expression that made her uncomfortable. Lucille's mouth was twisted as if she were tasting Janet's words and finding them bitter. And those eyes, Janet thought, really quite hopeless. She went on, however, and out of pity even invented a lie, though inventions of the sort were foreign to her nature and very difficult for her. Cora was always afraid of choking, even when she was a child. She was 10 years older than you, Lucille said. Her tongue felt thick, but the words were audible. Janet flushed. I can remember hearing her tell about it. You mustn't treat me as if I'm stupid. Cora wasn't stupid. She knew right away that she'd been poisoned. You're certainly wrong. No one would want to harm Cora. Not Cora. Me. They were meant for me. She ate some when I went out of the room. When I came back, she was sitting on her bed eating it. Slower, please, Miss Marple. I can't understand you. I ran to her and told her the grapes were poisoned and tried to get them away from her, but it was too late. She was dead instead of me. The picture became suddenly clear to Janet. Cora had been sitting on the bed, eating the grapes, when Miss Marple came in. Cora had looked up, smiling impishly, apologetically, because they weren't her grapes, after all. The smile faded as Miss Marple lunged across the room to grab the grapes away from her. They're poisoned! Cora had been frightened to death. It was all clear. He even accounted for so many of the grapes being spilled around the room. It was one of the things that had worried her, why Cora should have plucked so many of the grapes off the stem, if she'd just been sitting there eating them in an ordinary way. But it was perfectly clear now. Everything was settled. She explained it all to Dr. Goodrich, who seemed relieved and then set out for home. Off and on throughout the following week, she thought of Lucille Marple. She was sorry that she had not been able to do more for her, but also a little resentful because if it hadn't been for Lucille, Cora might still be living. On Friday morning, the day after Cora's funeral, Janet returned to the office. She was head buyer for the French salon at Hampton's department store, and she had a good deal of work to do before she went to New York for the spring clothes preview. But she didn't get as much work done as she had hoped to, for about 11 o'clock the policeman came to see her. Her secretary brought her his card, and Janet turned it over in her hand, frowning. Detective Inspector Sands. Never heard of him. Probably something about parking or driving through a red light. Still, an inspector. Perhaps my car's been stolen. Send him in. She leaned back in the big chair, filling it comfortably. She looked quite calm. When the first time she'd been visited by a policeman, Cora's misdemeanors had often made her acquainted with a number of them. But surely, she thought, even Cora couldn't be raising hell in hell. One corner of her mouth turned up in a regretful little smile. Miss Green, I'm Inspector Sands. Oh, yes. Sit down, will you? I've come about your sister's death. Well, Janet raised her thick black eyebrows. I thought that was settled at the inquest. The physical end of it, yes. There's no doubt at all that your sister's death was accidental. Miss Marlowe's connection with your sister that I'd like to know more about. He sat down, holding his hat in his hands. Janet looked at him maternally. He seemed very frail for a policeman. Probably they had to take just anybody on the force nowadays, with so many able-bodied men drafted. Probably he doesn't get proper meals and rest, and certainly somebody should do something about his clothes. Sands recognized her expression. He had seen it before, and it had always caused him trouble. Tomorrow I enroll with Charles Atlas, he thought. Dr. Goodrich and I talked it over, Janet said. It wasn't the poor woman's fault that she killed Cora. Dr. Goodrich said she was actually very fond of Cora, and in telling her the grapes was poisoned, she was trying to save Cora's life. That's why I'm here. On Saturday, Miss Green died. On Friday, you've been to visit her. Did she say anything about Miss Marlowe to you then? Oh, she said a few things, I guess. Cora was such a chatterbox sometimes I didn't pay much attention. She did say that she liked her new roommate and felt sorry for her. Tell me, how many years was your sister at Penwood? Off and on? For nearly 10 years. She really liked it there. She was quite sane, and very interested in the psychology of the patient. And not at all nervous about being with me. Not at all. Isn't it odd, then, that she should have actually believed Miss Morrow when Miss Morrow told her the grapes were poisoned? She was accustomed to the fancies and vagaries of the other patients. Why did she take Miss Morrow seriously? I never thought of that, Janet said with a frown. Of course, you're right. Cora would have said, oh, nonsense, or something like that. Unless the grapes were really poisoned. They weren't. I'm very confused. I thought everything was settled, and now I don't know what happened. What happened is clear enough. Your sister died of shock. And why? Because I think she believed Miss Morrow. She was convinced that Miss Morrow was not insane, that someone was really trying to kill her. Janet said, you sound as if you believe that too. Oh yes, I do, indeed. Janet looked skeptical. Some of the patients at Penwood could be very convincing, Yes, but your sister isn't the first of Miss Morrow's associates to die. She's the third. Third? Miss Green's death is the third. I believe it was accidental. The other two were deliberate murders. They remain unsolved. He waited while Janet registered first shock at the murders, and then indignation at what they were still unsolved. In his mind's eye, he could see the three who had died. Mildred Morrow, young and plump and pretty. Eddie Greeley, a diseased and useless derelict. Cora Green, a harmless little old woman. Each so dissimilar from the others, all having only one thing in common. Lucille Morrow. Well, I don't know what I can do to help, Janet said. I'm sorry I can't remember more of what Cora said about Miss Morrow. Sands rose. That's all right. It was a slim chance anyway. Well, I really am worried. I really am sorry, Janet said, and rose too and offered him her hand. Goodbye, if there's anything more I can do. No thanks, goodbye. They shook hands and he went out into the subdued, whispering atmosphere of the French salon. As he passed through the store, the air became warmer, the people noisier, the counters garish with Christmas, perfume, gloves, specialty aisles, slightly soiled and marked down underwear, clerks in felt Dutch bonnets, the newest rage. Anything on this table, 29 cents. Giver, hose. Throngs of housewives and college girls, harassed males and bewildered children, crams and elbows and tired feet and suffocating air. He paused beside a tie counter to get his breath. That's what you see with your eyes open, he thought, the tired feet and shoulder sag. The face is lined by pain or by poverty. The endless hurry, not to get to some place, but to get out of some place. But you could stand back and almost close your eyes and see only the happy, bustling throng, joyous with Christmas spirit, happy, happy people in a happy, happy world. Happy, silly word, rhymes with sappy and pappy. The clerk came up. Is there anything I can do for you? No thanks, Stan said. Everything's been done for me. He fought his way to the door, aware that he was being childish and neurotic, that his own failure condemned him to see at the moment only the failure of others. He passed through the revolving door on Yonge Street and drew the cold air into his lungs. He felt better almost immediately and thought, tomorrow I enroll with Charles Atlas and William Soriano. The street crowd was more purposeful and its bustling than the store crowd. The stenographers, bank clerks, trust builders, typesetters, lawyers and elevator operators were all in search of food. The elevator operators picked up a hamburger and a cup of coffee at a white spot. The stenographers ate chicken at a la king, jammed knee to knee in honeydew. And the lawyers, with less drive and perhaps more careful use of the privilege of pushing, headed for the Savarin on the Bay Street. On the corner, a newsboy about 70 was urging everyone to read all about it in the Globe and Mail. At about 2 o'clock, he would be equally ferocious about the Star and Taily, and around midnight he would appear again, this time with the Globe and Mail for the following day. Heraclitus stayed afloat, Sans thought. Not a flowing river, but a merry-go-round, highly mechanized, with the occasional brass ring for a free ride. He bought a paper, and with it folded under his arm, he walked to a parking lot to get to his car. While he was waiting for the attendant, he opened the newspaper and read the wants ad. Later, he would read the whole thing, but the wants ad was the most fascinating part to him. He could, offhand, tell anyone how much it cost to have facial hair permanently removed, how many Cocker Spaniels were lost and mechanics were needed, the telephone number of a practical nurse, and what you did, supposing you owned a horse and the horse died. Bird's eye view of the city. The attendant returned, folding the paper again. Sans tipped him and climbed into his car. He forgot about lunch and drove back to his office instead. The first person he saw when he opened the door was Sergeant Darcy. "Good afternoon, sir," Darcy said. When he talked, his prim little mouth moved as little as possible. "Oh," Sans said, "what do you want?" "Well, sir, as a matter of fact, I'm not happy in Inspector Bascombe's department." "That's too damn bad." Darcy flushed. "Well, I mean it, really. Mr. Bascombe is a truly intelligent man, but he's uncouth. He doesn't understand me. He keeps picking on me." "And?" "I told the commissioner that my qualifications, educational and otherwise, were of more specific use in your department." The commissioner was Darcy's uncle by marriage. "I told him I'd be much happier working with you because you don't pick on me." "Then it's about time I started," Sans said. Darcy took it as a joke and began to giggle. When he giggled, the air whistled through his adenoids, and the general effect was so unlovely that Sans' contempt turned momentarily into pity. "Why do you want to be a policeman?" "I don't know," he said. "I feel that my qualifications, educational—" "Stop quoting yourself. Why doesn't Uncle set you up in the interior decorating business or something? You'd look all right lugging around bolts of velvet." "That's the kind of remark that Mr. Bascombe makes," Darcy said stiffly. "My uncle wouldn't like it if he heard you say that." "Your uncle isn't going to be here," Sans said pleasantly, "because if I ever catch you sniveling and tale-telling while you're in this office, then I'm really in," Darcy said. "This is very good of you, sir. I'm just terribly pleased." "Get to work," Sans said, and went into his private office and slammed the door. He picked up the inner office phone and called Bascombe. "Bascombe, Darcy's changing hands again." "What a shame," Bascombe said with a spurt of laughter. "I'll certainly miss him when I go to the can. Had your lunch?" "No. I'll stand you to a blue plate special." "What's behind this?" "Nothing. I had a letter from Ellen yesterday." "Oh. She's still in Hull, but she's sick of the electrician. She wants to come home." "I see. Yeah, you buy me a lunch to pay for my advice, which you won't take." "What the hell? I don't need advice," Bascombe said. "I wired her money to come home." "That's swell," Sans said. "That's dandy. Pardon me if I'm not hungry." She swears that this time she's learned her lesson. She's working her way nicely through grade school. They say the work is tough, but no doubt she'll like it. "What the hell? What else could I do but send her money? She's my wife." "That's a technicality," Sans said, and quietly put down the phone. Things were normal again. Darcy was back. Owen was back. Owen who'd caught the brass ring. Someday someone would put it through her nose, but in the meantime she was seeing the world in a hell of a lot different kinds of bedroom wallpaper. The phone rang. It was Bascombe, sounding more uncertain now. "All right," he said. "So what do you think I should do, smarty pants?" "Lock the apartment and disappear. See a lawyer, make some arrangements to give her an allowance if your conscience bothers you. The essential fact is that not that Ellen is a tramp, but that she wouldn't be one if she didn't give a damn about you or ever had. It's not a physical thing. She's not unchaseable. She's just one of those low-grade morons who wants love as it is in the movies. Romance, soft lights, and sweet music. All the trimmings and none of the repercussions. Can be done, but not by Ellen. She's not bright enough." There was a silence. Then Bascombe said, "The blue plate offer still holds." "All right, I'll pick you up on my way down." During lunch they didn't mention Ellen. They talked about the Morrow case. Bascombe's department had had nothing to do with it since Lucille Morrow had been found. But he had a professional interest in the case, and he listened intently to the story of Cora Green's death. "3 of them," he said, when Sans had finished. "Damn odd. Miss Green's death was, of course, an accident. It wasn't planned or even imagined by the person responsible for the other 2. But the hellish part of it is, her death is serving a purpose. It's driving Miss Morrow past the borderline of sanity. And that, I believe, is the ultimate motive, to get Miss Morrow. The driving power behind is hate. Miss Morrow must be made to suffer, perhaps eventually she must be killed. But the present setup may stand. Someone is getting an exquisite pleasure in seeing Miss Morrow trying to cling to the wreck of her mind. Jesus, Bascom said. Damn funny the mere sight of an amputated finger would send her crazy, though. It didn't. It wasn't the finger itself, but her own state of mind at the time and the implications of the finger. A dead finger meant to her a dead woman, Mildred, the first wife, and a death warning to her, the second wife. Who could tell if she doesn't? Perhaps to her it was a sexual symbol, a token of her marriage. He looked at Bascom and added softly, and perhaps it meant more, much more than that. Of course, it's a member of her family. No one else could hate her so thoroughly, or know enough of her weaknesses to attempt such a refined sport as driving her insane. Really did his share in helping, to a woman who has lived a cultured, quiet, comfortable life. The mere contact with a man like Greeley must have been a shock, and the sending of the finger was a piece of mental sadism that I had rarely seen equal. Who in the hell would even think of sending a finger? And where did it come from? The Morrow family can offer no suggestions. They're united on one thing, that the police have no right to bother them, that they have enough trouble as it is. I questioned them at their house. When I was leaving, Dr. Morrow took me aside and asked me everything about the finger. He looked frightened, as if he knew quite a lot, but he wasn't telling. The Morrow women, Bascom said dryly, have bad luck. But the method is getting more genteel. From axes to suggestions, I've gone through all the police files and press clippings on Mildred Morrow. The first person to check in a wife murder is, of course, the husband. Dr. Morrow not only had a complete alibi, but the news of his wife's death put him in a hospital with brain fever. There's nothing phony there. Hospital records and charts stand, and the woman whose baby he was delivering at the time Mildred was killed is still living and remembers the night very well. Okay. All this and the fact that he had no possible motive puts Dr. Morrow in the clear. Morrow seems to have bad luck too. Bascom finished a piece of pie and pushed the plate away. Don't we all? You picked yours. Don't labor the point. Coming? Dan said he was not going back to the office. He had an appointment at the Ford Hotel. "15 minutes later, he was facing Lieutenant Frame across a small writing desk at the Ford. Frame was very stiff and very military. In clipped tones, he told Sands that he had recently finished a transport officer's course at the Canadian Driving and Maintenance School at Woodworth. He was now waiting to be transferred overseas. It was his last furlough, and he had intended to spend it getting married. How he actually was spending it was sitting around this dreary hotel waiting for Polly Morrow to make up his mind. As he talked, Frame became less a soldier and more an ordinary man with a group. I can't understand it, he told Sands. She's got some idea in her head that I've walked out on her. What I did was come down here. The rest of the family didn't want me there. Why should they? I'm a stranger to that." He forgot that Sands was a policeman on official business. Sands let him talk uninterrupted. He liked listening to people's problems. It was a little more personal than the wanting. "Martin's been okay," Frame said. "This Polly likes to boss people around until there's an emergency and then she has to be bossed. I don't understand women. I'm from the West, Alberta. Women don't act like this up there." "Don't they?" Sands murmured. "In fact, the whole thing has been a mess from the time I met her family. Practically before we said hello, we had to run into a train wreck." "Oh? Who was with you?" "Polly and her father and a Martin. I was so damn nervous anyway about meeting her family. I'd only known her for 3 weeks, then run into that mess and ended up picking up bodies," and he looked bitterly at Sands, as if Sands had entered the whole thing. "All right, what did you want to ask me?" Sands smiled. "Nothing, not a thing. Just dropped in to see how you were." Still smiling, he walked across the lobby, pausing at the door to wave his hand cheerfully. "Everybody's crazy," Lieutenant Fromm told the bartender sometime later. "Everyone's crazy but me." "Sure," bartender said. Sure. Chapter 10. On the day of Cora's death, Lucille was transferred to a room of her own and put in the charge of a special nurse. Miss Eustace had a highly specialized and difficult job. Called herself freelance psychiatric nurse. She worked in institutions and private homes, taking over 24-hour-a-day care of violent or depressed patients to prevent them from doing harm to themselves or others. Her reputation and her wages were high, and she was regarded with awe by the other nurses, who felt the strain of even 8-hour duty on a disturbed ward. Over 40 now, Miss Eustace considered herself a dull woman, and was always surprised when she was praised for her skill and endurance and patience. In addition to these qualities, Miss Eustace had a firm belief in God, a working knowledge of judo, and the ability to sleep and awaken as quickly as a dog. Only once had she been injured on a case, and that had been with her own knitting needles. She subsequently gave up knitting, and for amusement she played solitaire and wrote letters or simply talked. Lucille refused food for nearly a week, and on the 4th day Miss Eustace force-fed her by a tube. When it was over, Miss Eustace said calmly, "It's very undignified, isn't it? Especially for a pretty woman like you." Almost unconsciously, Lucille turned her head towards the mesh-covered mirror. Pretty? Me? Where is my hair? Tonight we'll have a bit of a soup together, Miss Eustace continued. You can't possibly starve yourself to death. You know, it takes too long. Scott, trained in a different tradition, would have been horrified to hear Miss Eustace speaking of death or starving to a patient. On the level of pure theory, Miss Scott may have been right, but Miss Eustace got results. For supper, Lucille had a bowl of soup and custard, and some faint trace of color returned to her pallid-drawn face. But she was losing weight rapidly. Clothes sagged on her body, and there were hollows beneath her cheekbones and a little sack of flesh under her chin. She never bothered to comb her hair and had to be told when to wash her hands. Though she seemed to listen quite attentively when Miss Eustace was talking, she rarely answered, and what talking she did was at night after she had been given a sedative. At these times, she was like a person who, after a certain number of drinks, feels he is thinking and talking very clearly and brilliantly, with no consciousness of his blurred speech. Miss Eustace went on playing solitaire and marking down her score. Out of 149 games, she had only won 11. But then it was, she wrote to her mother, a very difficult type of solitaire. All of it is Mildred's fault, Lucille muttered into the shadows. Mildred. My case is just popping up to sleep, Miss Eustace wrote steadily. Please excuse the writing, as just the floor light is on and it isn't very bright in here. Miss Eustace! Here I am, Miss Eustace said pleasantly. Would you like a drink? I keep thinking about Mildred. Turn over and think about something else. What have they done with my hair? She wants to know what they've done with her hair, Miss Eustace wrote. They do think of quite the oddest things to say sometimes. Lucille turned over in her bed. Think about something else. Not about Mildred. But look, see Mildred's hair. How coarse it looked. Each hair as thick as a tube, moving, writhing like snakes. Oh, Miss Eustace. Oh, please God. I already feel sorriest of all for the family. After all, they're still sane. My case's family came today, visitor's day, but they couldn't see her, Dr. Edrich's orders. The snakes writhed and bled in spurts, covering Mildred's face with their blood. Go away, I won't look at you. Bloody, she said softly. The language some of them use. I declare, for a Christian woman, I do know some of the awfulest words. I'd blush to repeat them. It even disturbs me when someone referred to a darling lassie as a bitch. I just can't get used to it. Give Lassie a bone for me and tell her I'll be coming home soon. I can't sleep, Lucille said. You're trying too hard. Just close your eyes and think of something else, nice and soothing, like rain or grass waving or trees. Grass. I'm thinking of grass and trees. The park. Late at night, black but moving. The stir with shapes and shadows. Be careful. Look over your shoulder. There's something there. Careful! Oh, it's only Martin. Don't be afraid. Martin? Is it Martin? Read it. Too dark. I don't know. But it's a friend. I can tell. Such a nice face. So wide and frank and candid. Suddenly it closed up like a fist. Where the eyes and mouth had been, there were only folds of skin. 2 holes for a nose and little buds of ears. I can't stand it! I can't stand it! What can't you stand? You just tell me and we'll fix it in a jiffy. I see things. How about some nice warm milk? I find warm milk puts me off just like that. No, no. The warm milk was sent for, but when it arrived, Lucille couldn't drink it. It smells bad. Well, it smells perfectly alright to me. Look, I'll take a sip first. How would that be? Bad. Miss Eustace took a number of sips to encourage her, and pretty soon the milk was gone. Refreshed, Miss Eustace returned to her letter. The smell of the milk lingered in the room, very faint and subtle, like the smell of blood or fresh snow. Poor woman really thinks someone's trying to poison her. Miss Eustace's pen moved in slow rhythm across the page. I have found the best thing to do is take a taste of everything before she does. It reassures her. Perhaps it's not very sanitary, but... The screeching of the pen was barely audible, but Lucille's ears magnified the sound. The sedative was wearing off, leaving her nerves raw and her senses too acute. Though she hadn't drunk the milk, the taste lingered on her tongue, a furry, grey-white sickness. The giant claws of the pen dug deep in the paper, and Miss Eustace's quiet breathing was as loud as wind. She turned over again. The blankets were heavy on top of her, painful and suffocating. She flung them off, and cool air struck her bare legs, and she began to shiver. Silently, Miss Eustace came across the room and lowered the window. You want me to rub your back? No. It might help. Can't have any more sedatives tonight, you know. In a sudden fury, Lucille told her what she could do with all sedatives. Miss Eustace remained calm. Now. You drank all my milk. I wanted it. We'll get you some more. I wanted that milk. Miss Eustace walked briskly into the bathroom and came back with a box of talcum powder. Roll over. We'll try a back rub. No! Like a child, she kept saying no, even when she was complying. Miss Eustace turned back her sleeves, revealing the highly developed forearm muscles that marked an experienced nurse. Up and down, across and around, and she worked Miss Eustace, talked in a monotone about her mother, her dog Lassie, her pretty sister who'd just been married. At first, the pain of her hands was unbearable to Lucille, but gradually she relaxed and flung herself on the mercy of her dreams. Miss Eustace opened the window and sat down on the edge of her cot to take off her slippers. The last thing she did before she went to bed was to cover Lucille. Lucille tossed and turned in her sleep under the light blankets that seemed to bind her legs and waist. Her sleeping mind was alive and singing in her fingers, her nipples, her hips, her thighs, the sensitive palms of her feet, that seemed to be caught in a net of words. Miss Eustace, my father, and my mother flustering in the aviary tower in a vanity and an inanity all night, my sweet hurt, take me out the dungeon through the grief-clangy door to the god-peace of Sir Knight. Oh, that was illegible. She struggled in a web of words, the blankets fell to the floor, and the web parted. Her dreaming mind moved in images across the unforgotten fields of the unconscious, seen forever for the first time. Across the foot-stippled snow she moved like a ghoul, leaving no track, casting no shadow. The iron gate stood ajar behind her, the sky curved over her head, poised and ponderous like an unclosed trap. Along the highway which ran like a ruler to the house where she must go, a line of cars went by, their wheels mourning on the road. The drivers were faceless with grief and doubt and malice. Polly, Martin, Andrew, Edith, faceless things passing to nothingness on the straight and narrow assembly line of doom. A man in gray clothes, whose facelessness looked 4 ways, stopped his car by the gate, and a fine of cars extended to the horizon stopped. It stretched out a gray aspen quaking hand to his sister, and the door of the car closed behind her softly like a mouth. The gray car moved on the gray road, and the line of cars began to hurry. The driver scanned the road ahead, and the woman in the back seat, and the bloody snow in the ditch, with omniscient eyelessness. The car dissolved around her like a mist, and the funeral procession went on forever, and over other hills, white rising hills, pimpled with blood. He was alone among the pines, walking in a tunnel of dark dripping pines, which led to the house, which led to the house, the house. She could see its white portico like a grinning mouth with long teeth, grinning in pain or menace. Behind the smiling pillars, the doors and windows blazed with light, but she knew there was nobody home. As she approached, the lights faded slowly, like recognition in dying eyes, and the portico grinned alone like a jawbone bared by worms. Passing a pillar, she touched it with her hand and felt the rotting plaster. Within the house, a faint stench of mold hung in the air like souring regret. Moving in the earthly darkness, she knew it was a tomb she had entered. It was terrible to step into a tomb, but she must find what she had come to get, the book of life, which was the book of death. Suddenly the house was as friendly and multiform as a large family spawned suddenly like mushrooms. As she climbed, the hunched stairs, the walls nudged her with obscene expectancy. The threads creaked like the malicious cackle of children. The curtains on the landing curved outward and divided like fingers to pinch her buttocks and stroke her thighs. She took a knife from her bosom and cut them away, and the severed fingers fell down and danced like babies at her feet. I must find the book, her fear said, as she went to her room and opened the bureau drawer. The sanguinary radiance of the book lit the room, and she saw it as she remembered it, and knew she was remembering it, knew she was dreaming. Thank God, she said, or dreamed, with the diary in her hand. Thank God, no one has taken it. She opened the book, the cover came off like the lid of a box, and a finger wriggled and squirmed inside like a mangled worm. Out of the grinning tomb, the grave-stench house, she ran with her hair coiling on her head like snakes, like long dead nervous hands. The gray car came up to the door, and the gray man led her into the little room behind the gathered curtains, where the dead slept on rollers under the grave-stench flowers. The long, gray curtained car moved away on rollers through the massive streets cast over the city like a concrete net, along the gilded lake, the hill-flanked forests, beyond the Triune Towers, the many nippled mountains into space, which expanded utterly as they moved into bright, anguished light, beyond through the hard and alien blaze to the extreme edge, the bleak and brilliant sword edge of death. The lights at Penwood are never out. At night they are dim to give the illusion that darkness and sleep come naturally here as they do in the other world, but even at midnight and from a distance you can see the glow of Penwood. There were always night noises. Someone screamed, someone wanted to go to the bathroom, or someone died, and the stretcher rolled softly up and down the inclines. In the morning the roosters crowed, the cows made their sad sounds, the night nurses washed their patients and went off duty, and another day began. Breakfast, doctor's rounds, occupational therapy, lunch, rest, walk outside or in gym, private talks in doctor's offices, dinner, music, card games, bed. Routine was subject to sudden changes. What packs of continual baths had to be given, or Miss Sims might obey her hidden voice and defile herself with food at the table, or Miss Philsinger might get out of the dining room with a forbidden spoon. Miss Eustace woke early and was immediately alert. Lucille was stirring, but she hadn't opened her eyes. Miss Eustace used the bathroom first. She washed her face and hands, cleaned her teeth thoroughly, and put on a fresh uniform. Returning, she found Lucille awake. Good morning. Have a nice sleep. Is it morning? Lucille said. Oh my, yes, but it doesn't seem like it, does it? One thing I don't like about winter, getting up before the sun. While she talked, she glanced with a professional eye at Lucille. She seemed rested and quite calm. Though Miss Eustace knew the calmness wouldn't last, she always considered it a good idea to take advantage of it in even momentary improvement. Let's go down to breakfast this morning, he said cheerfully. Some new faces would be good for you. Certainly you must be pretty tired of mine. Lucille looked a little surprised. She hadn't until this moment been conscious that Miss Eustace had a face. Miss Eustace was uniform and authority, a starched, white, and personalized symbol of we. Let's wear the red dress. There's something so cheery about red on a winter morning, I find. Lucille had no answer to this. None was possible. Miss Eustace had made up her mind that she, Lucille, in a red dress on winter morning, should go down to breakfast. "It's like a nursery school," she said. "What is? This place?" Miss Eustace laughed. "I suppose it is. Here's your toothbrush." While Lucille was dressing, Miss Eustace made 2 beds, timing herself by her watch. 2 minutes for Lucille's bed, 1 minute 37 seconds for her own. With pride, she marked the times down on her solitary score pad. Before she left, she opened 2 windows wide to give the rooms a good airing, hung up Lucille's nightgown in the closet, and put her own wrinkled uniform in a laundry bag. Then, with clear conscience and good appetite, she went down to breakfast. The dining room was quiet and orderly. The patients ate at small round tables in groups of 3 or 4. Automatically, Lucille walked to the table where she sat before with Cora and the Felsinger twins. She used to say, "Good morning," twins, and then seated Lucille and herself. "We personally don't want you here," Mary Felsinger said. "We like a table to ourselves. I've told the superintendent so a dozen times, haven't I, Betty?" "I don't know," Betty said with her mouth full. "Don't stuff your mouth so. It's disgusting. Do 100 times. And then swallow everything whole," they explained proudly to Miss Eustace. "Don't talk to her," Mary said. "She's a spy." Smiling and calm, Miss Eustace began to talk about her house in the country, and what she had for breakfast there, and how her tulip tree first blossomed in the spring, when blossoms fell off the leaves appeared. "What color blossoms?" Mary asked suspiciously. "Pale pink, almost white, really. Very funny about the leaves. I don't believe it for a minute." "True," Lucille said suddenly. "I had a tulip tree once." "I wish I had one," Betty said. Her sister touched her hand. "I'll buy you one. You always say that, and you never do. Ungrateful liar. I'll swallow something whole if you call me that." "Oh, Betty, don't, darling. Please don't." The maid arrived with orange juice, oatmeal cooked with raisins, and covered dish of egg on toast. Lover-like, the twins quarreled, while Miss Eustace talked about dogs. Collies were nice, and so were Cocker Spaniels, but she preferred Airedales, really. They were very faithful. "Cats are best," said Mary, unable to resist Miss Eustace's dangling bait. "We like cats best of all." "Cats are nice, too," Miss Eustace agreed. "What do you like best, Miss Marlowe?" "Oh, I don't know. Dogs, I guess." "Dogs are vicious," Mary said, closing her mouth decisively on a piece of toast. "Some of them are, of course." Miss Eustace went on. "It depends mostly on the training and to a certain extent on heredity. I personally have never been able to quite trust a chow, for instance." "I'd rather have a tulip tree," Betty said. Mary leaned over and muttered something in her ear, but Betty tossed her head and looked scornful. Miss Eustace watched Lucille out of the corner of her eye to see if the scene interested her or upset her. She noted with approval Lucille had eaten half of her oatmeal, and though she didn't talk voluntarily herself, except for the remark about her tulip tree, she seemed to be following the conversation. We should have quite a good day, Miss Eustace thought, and felt pleased with herself. The twins were fighting again, in low voices, but with a great many flashing glances and passionate gestures. Finally, Mary retreated into cold silence, and it was then that Miss Eustace saw her pick up her spoon and tuck it carefully into the bun of hair at the back of the head. With a furtive glance around the room, Mary rose and made for the door. Miss Eustace rose too. "We're not supposed to take spoons out of the dining room," she said kindly. "Put it back, please." "Spoon?" Mary cried in great surprise. "What spoon?" "Put it back." "I don't know what you're talking about." The nurse in charge of the dining room was making her way towards them between the tables. She had the spoon out of Mary's hair before Mary was aware it was missing. "Now, Mary," she said, "you know better than to do that. This is the second time this week." "I'm running away," Mary cried. "I'm leaving her flat. She can't trust me like that and get away with it. She can't treat me like that and get away with it. I'm running away. She'll know what it's like to be left with no one to look after her." "I'll swallow something," Betty said calmly. Before anyone could stop her, she had removed a ring from her finger and popped it in her mouth. Gulping and gasping, she was dragged out of the room and pounded vigorously on the back by the nurse. But it was too late. The ring had already joined the collection of other articles in Betty's stomach. The twins departed in disgrace with Miss Scott. Her insides must be a regular museum, the dining room nurse said to Miss Eustace. I want to catch it for this. It wasn't your fault at all, Miss Eustace said, returning to the table to finish her breakfast. The episode had apparently made no impression on Lucille. She was intent on her toast, breaking it up into small pieces and arranging them symmetrically around the plate. He's being very cooperative, Eustace thought. He's really trying to eat. Odd, she said. Sugar for your coffee? Yes, thanks. The fat pink sugar bowl was passed. Lucille would not touch it. Its flesh was too pink, too perfect. Not real flesh at all, she thought, but she knew it was because she could see it breathing. Miss Eustace's spoon clanged against the grains of sugar. 1 or 2. 1. There, stir it up before you drink it. No, dear, stir it up first. She picked up her spoon, dreading the feel of it. Everything was alive, everything hurt. She was hurting the spoon, and though it looked stupid and inert, it was hurting her in return, digging into her fingers. Not so hard, Miss Marlowe. Around the cut, the spoon dashed in fury and pain, stirring up the hot, muddy waves and all the little alive things. She swallowed them in triumph because she had won, in despair, because swallowed and out of sight, they would take vengeance on her. Everything was alive, food that hurt your shoes, that hurt your feet. The napkin that touched your dress, that pressed against your thighs, pain everywhere. No privacy, you could never be alone. You always had to touch things and have them touch you. You had to swallow and be swallowed, had things inside you, alive things. Shoulders began to twitch. She's impatient to leave, Miss Eustace thought. A good sign. Usually she just wants to stay where I put her. Miss Eustace rose. Carelessly her feet struck the floor. Roughly she folded the napkin. Come along, we'll get the mail. She put out her hand as if to help Lucille up. Lucille stared at the hand, and a shriek began to rise up inside her, making her throat raw and thick. Miss Eustace saw the screaming eyes and began to talk fast, and at the same time coax her with gentle fingers out into the corridor. The mail. Push. What did she suppose she'd get this morning? Push. You never could tell with mail. Parcels were the best, though. Arm in arm, close, intimate, they strolled down the corridor. They stopped at the mail desk. Andrew's daily box of flowers had arrived, but the incoming mail had not yet come, and the girl behind the wicket was looking over the patient's outgoing mail. She picked up an envelope labeled in red crayon, Walter. Look at this, she said. She passed the letter through the wicket to Miss Eustace. He writes dozens of them every day. Walter? What's that? He inverts his M's. He means his mother. I can't let his letters go out. I have to take them in to Dr. Nathan. They upset his mother terribly because all the boy does is complain. Hush, said Miss Eustace with a frown towards Lucille. But Lucille hadn't heard anything. She was standing with her arms tied around the box of flowers. Brutally, the box hugged her breast, and she embraced the pain. Though I just hate to suppress any letters, the girl said, it's against my principles. Dear Weather, Miss Eustace read, I can't stand it any longer. The inflationary bargains of the state of the world, whether they are cruel to we, they hate we, and hardly any consequence could eventuate under the status quo. It was not signed, but there were rows of X's at the bottom. Such a pity, said Miss Eustace, sighing. I always say it's the family that suffers the most. She raised her voice. Miss Marlowe, you're crushing the box. Shall we go back up now, or do you want to wait for the mail? I don't know, Lucille said. Then I suppose we might as well wait. Shall we open the flowers? Lucille's grasp on the box tightened for an instant, and then quite suddenly her fingers relaxed, and the box fell on the floor. The lid came off, and there was a spill of violets. Oh, the darlings, said Miss Eustace, picking them up. Aren't they grand? Such an earthy smell, somehow. She muzzled them while Lucille watched, suffering in silence for the violets, the long-limbed, delicate children, too delicate to breathe and so dead and blue in the face, giving off the smell of earth-buried coffins. The live floor quivered under her feet, the air touched her cheeks and arms, its caress a warning and a threat, and the violets returned to life. They had only been holding their breath like Cora, and their little bruised faces puckered in pain. Oh, I hurt, and what have I done? Oh, what have I done? So tight and sad did the little faces become that they turned into eyes, damp blue eyes, dragging their limp and single legs behind them into the box. Here you are, Miss Eustace said, passing the box to her. Why, they're just the color of your eyes. Lucille felt the sharp corner of the box touch her arm. The pain was so intense and unbearable that she had to reach out and grab the box and thrust a corner of it into her breast like a knife. I have died. I am dead. She smiled, and clutching the symbol of death, she moved silently and swiftly down the corridor. Miss Morrow, wait for me. Miss Eustace caught up with her, panting. Well, I declare, I didn't know you were in that much of a hurry. Are you going somewhere? Out. Out where? I want some fresh air. Oh, you do, Miss Eustace said, half pleased, half suspicious. I want some fresh air. Well, let's wait a bit until the sun gets stronger, then we'll go out on the roof garden, where there is a pretty view from there. Wait here a minute, and I'll go back for the mail. Miss Eustace returned to the wicket, moving in a kind of sideways fashion so that she could keep Lucille in sight. Lucille made no attempt to get away from him. She stood, straight and alert, as if she was standing guard over something precious to her. Miss Eustace came back. Here's a letter for you, dear. Now, aren't you glad we waited? Lucille wouldn't take the letter, so Miss Eustace put it in the pocket of her uniform. So unnatural not to be interested in mail, she thought. Tried again when they reached the room. Here's your letter. You can read it while I'm doing the chart. Sit down right there. I'll put the flowers in water. She settled Lucille in a chair and placed the letter on her lap. Then, humming softly, she went into the bathroom and filled a Monel vase with water. She was always excited by mail, and other people's as well as her own. Even the most commonplace observations on the weather were glamorous when sealed and postmarked. Privacy protected by His Majesty King George IV. Sixth. I wonder who it's from, she thought, and returned to the room. 7. George VII. One of the King Georges. Do you want me to read it to you? I don't care. Eustace, thrilled, slipped the envelope with an efficient thumbnail. It's signed Edith. I always peek at the end of the letter just to see who it's from. Here goes, dear Lucille. I hope you received the chocolate and pillow rest I sent day before yesterday. Well, of course we did, didn't we? Those back rests are very comfy. It's very difficult to get chocolates these days, and one has to stand in line. Wouldn't it silly of you to destroy them when she went to so much trouble to buy them? Lucille turned her head and looked deliberately out the window. Very difficult to get poisoned chocolates these days. One has to stand in line. We'll miss you a great deal, though. I feel so hopeless saying it because I know you won't believe it. I feel so hopeless. Everything is such a mess. The policeman Sands was here again, talking about the train wreck. Remember that afternoon? I don't know what he was getting at, but whoever did anything to you, Lucille, it wasn't me. Lucille, it was not me. I don't know. I can't figure anything out anymore. I have this sick headache nearly all the time, and Martin is driving me crazy. It isn't very cheerful, is she? Said Miss Eustace in disapproval. Go on. Go on. Very well. They've always seemed like my own children to me, the two of them, and now I don't know. I look at them and they're like strangers. Meals are the worst time, because we watch each other. That doesn't sound like much, but it's terrible. We watch each other. Silly woman, thought Miss Eustace, and turned the page. I know Andrew wouldn't like me to be writing a letter like this, but Lucille, you're the only one I can talk to now. I feel I'd rather be there with you. I always liked and trusted you. I've always loathed and been jealous of you. We watched each other. Everything is so mixed up. Do you remember the night Giles came and I said, God help me, that we were a happy family? I feel this is a judgment on me for my smugness and wickedness. I don't know how it will all end. This is a judgment on me for my wickedness. It will all end. That's all, said Miss Eustace. That is all. It will all end, and that is all. Miss Eustace returned the letter to its envelope, her movements brisk because she was in the way. People shouldn't write problem letters. Letters should be nice and homey and rather dull. Let's bundle it all up and get some nice fresh air, shall we? Lucille didn't move, sat heavy and inert, while Miss Eustace lifted her arms around her coat and tied a scarf around her head and put on the gloves. The roof garden glittered in the sun. Snow clung to the high fence, and where the strands of barbed wire ran to the top, there were globules of snow caught on the bars. Slowly, Lucille walked over to the fence and put her hand on it. Snow sifted down on her upturned face, touching her eyelids lightly and coldly. She looked down through the fence and saw little people walking, the tracks behind them in the snow, and the only sign that they were real. So tiny and fertile they seemed from a distance, like skiers in the park. Futile, futile, she thought, and pressed her forehead hard against the fence, branding her flesh with a diamond. Goodness, I just can't look down from high places, Miss Eustace said. Makes me quite dizzy. She looked down anyway, shivering with cold and dread delight. Then she stepped back and squinted her eyes against the sun. She breathed deeply because she didn't get much fresh air in her job, and she had to get as much of it as she could when the chance came. In, hold, out, hold, in, hold. Miss Eustace felt glad to be alive. Lucille remained pressed against the fence. She did not feel the cold, the pain, the heat of the sun. She was not aware of Miss Eustace behind her. She looked down, her eyes strained. Snow burst into orange flame. The sharp black shadows pointed at her. The smoke curled up at her. The windows stared at her. The wind went past whispering. It will all end. In and out Miss Eustace breathed. She was beginning to wheeze a little, but when she spoke, she sounded triumphant. 100. Whew! I didn't realize just how breathing was such hard work. Still, I always say there's practically nothing the matter with anyone that 100 deep breaths won't cure. Shall we walk a bit now? Lucille didn't answer, but Miss Eustace was feeling too invigorated to care. She strode away, planting her feet firmly, making nice clear tracks in the snow. 20 strides north, 20 strides south, on the rising wind. It will all end. If you don't move around a bit, Miss Marl, you'll be cold. I'll be burned in the snow there waiting for me. It will all end. No, really, you mustn't take your gloves off, dear. Your hands will freeze. You could feel Miss Eustace coming up behind her, but she didn't hurry with the second glove. She didn't even look to see what she was doing. She was filled with great power because, for the first time in a week, she knew what she must do. Miss Eustace, no one else, to stop her. Her hands clung to the fence like eagle's claws as she began to climb. Slowly, there was no hurry. She braced herself by catching the heels of her shoes in the fence holes, and up she climbed, bent double, her coat flapping around her. Miss Eustace screamed, "Stop!" and got hold of one of her ankles and pulled. The heel of the other shoe came down viciously on the bridge of her nose, and there was a crunch of bone and spurt of blood. Miss Eustace lurched back, screaming, and wiped the blood out of her eyes. "Come back! Come back!" "No! No! This is judgment on me for my wickedness." The barbed wire tore her hands and her face, but she felt nothing, made no sound. At the top, she hoisted herself over, clumsily, but with great strength. Her coat caught on a barb, and for a second she hung suspended in the air, a grotesque thing, bleeding and flapping. Then the threads of the coat broke, and she fell. Her big black shadow slid quietly down the wall of the building. And that's where we come to the end of chapter 10. And we are there. It doesn't look like we won't have. Maybe there will only be 6 segments because we have 11 and 12, and then 13 and 14. So yeah, looks like we'll be able to actually do this in just a couple more segments. And hopefully you enjoyed this and you will return for more. I do apologize about my crashing, apparently, again. Seems like it's a common theme now for this story. Either way, yeah. If you like my read, like, comment, subscribe. You want a kitty cat? Come to our favorite felines. They've got all kinds for you. And I don't think it's just cats either. It's our favorite felines, but I think she has like horses too, and all kinds of animals. So, you never know. Come on down. I mean, if anything, you just fish for a fish, and maybe you might catch a catfish. Well. Like, comment, subscribe. Good night.
A tale that will haunt your dreams.